No, we're going to come back to Man United a little bit later in the show. But I wanted to start off with a little bit of Liverpool, actually. This is Ferdinand and Joel Bayer talking about Liverpool start to the season. Let's see what Mark thinks about this.
Horrendous, poor, lacking creativity. Nick a result. It's the stuff of champions.
That's what happens when you spend £466 million. That's what you expect, mate. That's what I'm saying.
450 plus million. You expect them to batter teams week in, week out. Not nick results. Burnley away.
You are actually right with that, but I expect them to win. End of the day, right? If they win the league, which I still believe we have a chance to do, yeah. If they win the league, so what? They've spent 466 million. You got to win it. 1-0, 2-0, 5-0. You got to win it.
Joel, 460 odd million in this window, right? And they're the first side in Premier League history to win 4 consecutive games by scoring goals in the last 10 minutes. They're absolutely scraping through.
Where was the brand read there? Because that just looked like they were reading from a script. Rio, 466 million. They've got to win the league. Joel, 460 million. They've got to win. Scraping it. It was bloody. What's wrong with them? I thought they'd worked together. That was terrible. Absolutely rubbish. Yeah. Apart from the dull script read, some people are struggling for content. I suppose. I don't really get the overemphasis of the 460 million. I suppose it's just like rage bait, isn't it? You know, we live in a rage bait. I just think that, you know, Liverpool have changed half their team. They're favourites to win the league. They've spent a lot of money. All right, let's park that. We can come back to that later in the season. But there is an international break, which impacted everybody, apart from probably the Manchester derby. I thought that was quite good. But even Arsenal, the 0-0s on the Saturday games, there was a lot of, you know, drabness around the international break. We expect that. Liverpool weren't at their best, but they weren't at their best against Arsenal, Newcastle, or Bournemouth. They've got 2 new fullbacks. They've got obviously a huge tragic incident that happened in the summer that the club will be working through that nobody really mentions at the moment. Psychologically, I think that will have an impact on the club. And I think that they've also got a very, very competitive Premier League. I mean, look at Bournemouth. They played Bournemouth, who have 9 points from 12. They've got Arsenal, who've had 9 points from 12. They played a Newcastle team that, if they'd had a striker, might have beaten them. And, you know, they were just a bit sluggish against Burnley. But I don't really think there's a team at the moment that's really cooking. And I think if you're a Liverpool fan, you'd listen to that and go, burn, baby, burn. You'd just be like, you know, whatever. It's a very good start to the season. I think it's daunting that Liverpool are 12 from 12, when realistically, I think even a Liverpool fan would say could have drawn the Newcastle game, could have drawn the Burnley game. A worldie won the Arsenal game. I mean, Bournemouth, they did lose a 2-goal lead, but they'd have won that. But they could have had 6 or 7 points, and they've got 12. So that's the worrying thing, because at some point I think they will start to play a lot better. But, you know, going through the motions at the start of the season is not something we're, not used to as United fans, Terry, because we always did this at the start of the season. We were always a little bit, you know, going through the motions, and then, you know, you sort of hit it around Christmas.
Yeah, that's why. And there was maybe a little bit element of rage bait, and there maybe even some sarcasm potentially. Again, we only, you know, it's the clip they put out, by the way. So I mean, it's, you know, that's I suppose on them to a degree. But I've seen quite a bit of this from people the last few days about Liverpool. And my view is just, again, have a little banter with it. You know, you've got a mate who's a Liverpool fan. Oh, you got lucky again at the weekend, didn't you? I think you can. There's always room for that in football. But when it comes to actually breaking it down and talking about it, my question is this: what's more likely in the next 3 or 4 months? Liverpool's performances get better, stay the same, or get worse? And I think most sane people would say get better, and they've won 12 points from 12. And that is the sobering fact that everybody always says that every top team will have a bad period in the season. What if the start of the season is their bad period and they pick up almost maximum points? They're winning the league. So for me, I get why people always want to shit on their rivals. I understand it. I'm a fan as well. But it's just everywhere you go now. We speak about it almost every week. The mainstream, including I mean, this is still being discussed. This clip here I'm about to play, I haven't listened to it. This is Richard Keys, aka Hairy Knuckles, and Andy Gray, aka Whilst You're Down There, Love, talking about the fact these guys grew up in the era they did, and they were the premium presenters and pundits during the 90s, makes this clip even worse, in my opinion. But let's take a little look.
No, what I was saying is, if you're being sold to a team like Liverpool, and Ekitike was being, he was, okay, Newcastle were in, the asking. Ekitike's joining Liverpool, he speaks to them. He certainly would have asked them, what's your plans for me? What do you see me doing? And I can't believe he joined the team and after being told, well, we're going to sign you, but after we've got you, we're going to buy Alexander Isak for double what you've cost. So you'll play a few games, but you won't play quite as much as you might expect. I would have said, I'm sorry, I want to play football. I'm a young, mid-20s, centre forward, international. I don't want to come and sit on your bench for 7 out of 10 games. No, I don't.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, he's not mid-20s, he's only just turned 23. I just checked that there. I knew he wasn't mid-20s. And also, like, I don't know, look, it's a long time since they've been relevant, so maybe they're still looking back on football from that time. But I look at the benches of PSG and Real Madrid and Barcelona and Bayern Munich and Manchester City over the recent years, and squad games rule. The reason Premier League clubs are not winning the Champions League as much as they should, considering we've got the best league in the world, is because we're burnt out by the end of the season. And what we saw with Arsenal at the weekend was Declan Rice wasn't injured. That's Arteta already looking at a squad and going, okay, I'm going to rotate here, I'm going to use this player, and I'm going to not use that player, and I think it's going to work, and I'm going to trust them. Liverpool's bench actually isn't that deep at the moment. So Ekitike could play where Wirtz is. He could play where Gakpo is. Isak has had injuries in the past. He's not ready to go at the moment. They've got Champions League, Carabao Cup, FA Cup, Premier League. Ekitike will play lots and lots of games. So Andy Gray saying, I don't want to go to Liverpool, the best club in England, who've got the chance of winning the Premier League and the Champions League this year. I don't want to go and compete at Liverpool against Isak. I want to go and play for Everton, where I can play every week. It's a horse piss opinion, isn't it? And the modern player wants to play for the big clubs and back themselves. And, I wouldn't be surprised if he thinks he can keep Isak out of the team. Probably can't, but he will still get a lot of games.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's competition for places. 70 odd games this season. If Liverpool are successful in every comp, which they have the squad to be, they could play near on 70 football matches this season. Even if you only start half of them, you're still starting around 35 games. And this is why I struggle with this kind of content. This is why I struggle with this kind of opinion. I remember the greatest English team of all time, the team that was the first team to do the treble, a squad that, was on the back end of the double-double, which recently has been called a non-thing, which I find very weird. And Man United, yes, we played with 2 strikers in 99.
We had 4 in 99.
But we had 4 in the squad. So
yeah.
All the top teams back then had 3 to 4 strikers when they played with 2. It is not abnormal. It is not weird. It is not strange for there to be 2 strikers in a squad. In fact, last year, God rest his soul, Jota was there alongside Darwin Núñez. And Darwin Núñez weren't good enough, and Jota spent quite a bit of time out injured. Of course, you want 2 players. The fact that both, as well, what Andy Gray is just missing, is that both Ekitike and Isak can drift out to that left-hand side. So there'll be games where they both play and start together, because Gakpo isn't going to start all the games out there. Young Rio, as brilliant as he looks, is not going to be ready to start all those games. For me, I know that there are quiet times when it comes to content, even for the big boys. But this, again, is just content being made, I think, to infuriate people. I think it's being made. And I kind of get that again if an Everton fan makes that. I get an Arsenal fan making it. I understand a Chelsea fan making it. What I don't get is multi-billion-pound backed beIN Sport doing it. Give us, because Andy Gray, whether he's relevant now or not, I'll be honest with you, growing up, the man's analysis was amazing. Absolutely fantastic. And I remember those Sunday afternoons listening to him break down games. He was unbiased. He didn't behave like this. And they're all doing it now. Everything's about we've got a Gary Neville clip coming up as well soon. But it's like, I've got to say something that I know is going to rattle people and is going to make the headlines, rather than just telling us what you really think. And there's no
you've got
way.
to back yourself, haven't you?
Yeah,
you've got to back yourself.
Hold on.
I, you know, obviously, I think the way we operate is like there is no producer saying do this, do that. It's like always been driven by your own opinions, and it's the best way to be true to yourself. But guarantee it. You know, I saw it at TalkSport. I've done shows at Sky, and it's, you know, even when I went on the kickoff, like there's a producer in your ear saying talk about this, and I'm sort of like, that works for some people. They need to be led, but I just think, you know, say what you think and go with it, because that way it comes across as authentic. And, you know, chasing rage bait because you think it's going to make a good clip, you just make yourself look an idiot for it. And it's nonsensical as well, because as you say, Andy Gray and Richard Keys would have been around in 99. Should Solskjaer and Sheringham said to Sir Alex, don't want to be here? Their careers are defined by coming off the bench in 99 and, no, I don't want to be here. I want to go and play for Everton so I can play every week. Like, you want to look back at your career, and Ekitike might come on in the Champions League final and score a winner. Oh, I should have listened to Andy Gray and play for Everton. You know, it's like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being a squad striker or somebody competing for a place in a team. He's a young player as well. He could be the heir to Isaac. You know, he might go to Barcelona. You know, who knows? Look at Alvarez. He was at Man City for a bit, and now he's at Atletico Madrid, and people want him at bigger clubs. So he's on his own journey, isn't he?
Very, very interesting reports though about him that he regrets going there, actually. And I bet there's a part of him that thinks, I should have stayed at City, you know, should have stayed at City. The grass isn't always greener, and it's so early to judge. And you're right, maybe both players are killing it at Liverpool, and in 2 years, 3 years time, something's got to give, and one of them wants to move on because the other one's starting all these games. But that in itself isn't a problem for Liverpool. That shouldn't even be seen as a problem for these players. They're both going to get game time. They're both going to get opportunities. It's crazy. Khalid
just very, very quickly say, Bruno, one of your moderators, says we can make 5 substitutions. Remember that. I remember speaking to Rasmus when we did that interview, and I was like, you know, how do you feel about competition for places? Because Martial's never fit, because that was like, you know, the first year he was here in the January. And he said, I really do want a striker to compete with because it makes me train better. But also, I can't play 3 games a week. You know, I need a rest. I need to come off after 70 minutes sometimes. I know that for my own body. I don't want to, but I need to. So even Isaac knows he needs an Ekitike for a multitude of reasons, because you can't play 3 games a week, 90 minutes. And especially in the modern game, benches are just hugely important.
No, absolutely right. Khalid here says, why are you acting like Liverpool aren't media darlings? They are literally making up stats to make Wirtz look better than he is. But it's a mixture, isn't it? I've already called that out on yesterday on the Top 6 show. We spoke about that, or maybe it was Straight Facts in the morning. Straight Facts in the morning with Jamie, who's a Liverpool fan. We spoke on that, and I think that it is a little bit crazy. They did it with Darwin Núñez too, with the whole captain chaos thing, and but he makes it hard for defenders. They were ignoring the most important elements of him as a striker. I agree, and I called that out on stream, Khalid. Same as I'm calling this out on stream. So I don't really get your point.
Players flop though. Like, you know, I've done this analysis for years, and like, I can't remember whether it was Jose or Sir Alex or Pep. One of them did an interview years ago, and they basically said it's statistically proven that 40% of signings over all the years of football will either be average or flop, and 60% will be considered a success. So if Wirtz does flop at Liverpool, there'll be a load of people laughing, but it's only in keeping with the statistical analysis of transfers over many decades. Like, not every player will be a success. And people are almost hungry to call. I mean, look at the Gyökeres. People want him to be a flop, even though he isn't. They're desperately chasing these flops. And I sort of look at it and go, well, I think it's too early to say Wirtz is a flop. Obviously, it's way, way too early. But one of those Liverpool signings probably will be classed as a flop, because statistically, that's just the way it works out. At Man United, one of our 4 signings will be a flop, because that's just the way it works. I hope not, but you know, I don't get it. Like, you know,
I agree. But everything's about instant. I learned this when I was still, just 10 years ago. I learned this working in the bank, and I always remember this when I more than that. 15 years ago I joined. 20 years ago I joined. When I first entered, you remember these days, if you lost your bank card, it was 5 days to get a new one. And I would say one of my first jobs in the branch was handling the complaints. I would say 3 times a day I had to submit that complaint and send it off to head office. Maybe a year into me being there, they changed the process, changed couriers, and you could get the card in 2 working days. And for a little period of time, everyone was like, oh my God, that's so amazing. 2 days, great. After maybe a year, 2 days was too long, Mark. I cannot wait 2 days for a card. So the bank developed something new, which meant you could wait in branch and get it instantly. And about 80% of our branches had the machines to print the cards instantly. Oh my God, this is amazing. It was filled, go through security with your ID, sit down. It takes about 25 minutes because it did take a long time for the card. It wasn't like a printer. I actually got to make the card, print it out, get it all working. After about 3 or 4 months, the amount of complaints we got, official complaints from people moaning they had to wait 25 minutes for a new card. 3 years earlier, it was 5 days. And this is why, and we'll get on to maybe that point later when it comes to Man United, this need for instant gratification is there. And fans now like, oh, I want to say these players are flops. We used to give it 2 years. Then it was a year. Then it was 6 months. Then it was 10 games. Then it was 007. Now it's 1 preseason game. They don't look good. They're finished. They're rubbish. And for me, I get the banter. But for me, it's becoming boring now, and I think it's not killing what we do, but I think people are just getting sick and tired of that type of analysis. And yeah, Wirtz hasn't been good. I think people are going over the top. I actually think Gyökeres has been okay in two of these 4 games. And I was pointing this out to people the other day about Gyökeres. Do you know if you actually go and look, and I bet you can find this stat to be true by and large, if you look at Torres versus all the best teams at the time he played in the Prem, Rooney versus the best teams, and best teams not historically at that moment. I bet you'll find the majority of the games they played against those sides they didn't score. Even Rooney got lots of goals against Arsenal. But if you actually weigh up every match he played against Arsenal, say he played 20, I bet all those goals come in 5 or 6 games. There'll be far more games they don't score in against big sides than they do.
Haaland scores against all the shit teams, 2 again at the weekend. But will he score against Arsenal at the weekend? I don't necessarily think he will.
It's a great point. Yeah. Stat padding. He stat padded at the weekend. He certainly did that. No doubt about it. But yeah, I do think that the analysis, as you say, around Liverpool is a little bit too much indeed.